How's everybody doing? Welcome. My name is Manouchka, and we're so excited that you would join us at this breakout. How many people are enjoying VOUS Conference 2019 so far? We're so grateful that people would come from all over really to be a part of VOUS Conference, and it's all about encountering God, equipping the church, and really engaging with the next generation. And I believe that God's going to do something special through VOUS Conference, and just with everyone taking the time out to being a part of breakouts to say, hey, I want to learn a little bit more. And we don't have all the answers, but we're happy to share what we know. But my name is Manouchka, and I'm on staff here at VOUS Church, and I really help in our operations and our VOUS Care department. And really, VOUS Care is broken down into 5 different teams, if you will. We have our Tuesday night classes that we're going to talk a little bit about. We have I Love My City, which is our once a month outreach. We have something brand new that we just started this year, which is our VOUS Foster Care Ministry. We have our VOUS Missions, and our team is getting ready to go on a trip to Peru in a week, which is really exciting. And then we have our pastoral care. So we're going to be touching a little bit on some of that. But I've got some of my friends up here. I've got Joe K. Give it up for Joe K. We got Benny up here. How you guys doing?
Great.
Awesome. Well, I love Joe K and Benny. Joe K really helped lead up our Tuesday night classes. Her and her twin sister, Fumi, really helped lead our VOUS Care classes, and they've been such a big part of our church from the very beginning in leading in the space. And not only do they lead, but they're actually professionals, and so really excited to hear all they're going to share. And Benny, absolutely amazing. We've worked together in I Love My City, and has so much experience and background in outreach and has worked with so many different incredible organizations that we still partner with. But then he also leads our Celebrate Recovery class that happens on Tuesday night. So we're so grateful for all you guys have poured into our church and all you guys do. But really, this breakout is all about why you should stop trying to change your city. I think for us from the very beginning, from day one, we had to make a decision. Hey, we want to change the world, and it's not if we do, but it's how will we do it. And we believe that God has not called us to change our city, but he's called us to serve our city. And so we have taken time. It can seem like a huge task, and something that seems like a huge task, we could easily say, hey, I don't want to take this on. It's too much to change my city. But we just take it piece by piece. We take it one day at a time, brick by brick. We do what we can to really help steward what God has given us and pour into our community. And we've seen so many incredible things come out from all of that. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. And at the end, we're going to open up for some questions. I know a lot of people, you might do outreach at your church. You might be interested in outreach. And we just want to share what we know, and we want to be able to pour out whatever we can. And so with that, Benny, I Love My City is really something that we started before we even launched our church, before we ever had a service, before we ever had a crew. We would meet monthly together, and we already had that decision on our heart that we wanted to serve our city. And so it started before VOUS Church launched. But can you tell us a little bit about I Love My City? What is I Love My City?
So I Love My City is really our monthly outreach, and there are some months where we don't have a specific outreach because it's the way that it might land on a certain thing that we have going on, but pretty much we have 5 monthly outreaches that are more project oriented. So we have a list of projects. I think we started, I remember originally coming, there was like 6 projects, and then it went up to like 13 projects, and then it went up to 20 projects. And really what those projects are is us partnering and going into our community. So it's really us working with local agencies, partnerships, even larger organizations that might come. And so I think what it's done for us is that it's allowed us to have this in-reach in our community. And then what we also have with this, we have like 4 major events. And so it's a total of really like 9 months out of the year where we really are actively doing this. And what I love about that is we have a toy drive in December. We have our Thanksgiving bash in November. Then we have our Easter egg drop, which I don't know if you guys have followed us and seen us on Instagram. I mean, was it 20,000 eggs from
40,000.
40,000 eggs? That's crazy, first of all. But that brought a significant, and we've seen that grow. And then we also have our back to school bash. And so when you look at it, I Love My City really has this ongoing approach towards how do we serve our community? How do we mobilize people? How do we engage? How do we understand the pulse and the heartbeat of where God has positioned us? And so with I Love My City, we've seen amazing things happen. And so we're constantly active in so many ways. But I think what's helped us out from the get-go is that it started small and then it organically began to grow. It didn't feel like we had to force anything. It felt like when people knew we were present, they would come to us and say, here's a project. Can you come serve a project here? Or there were people who God was bringing to our church and saying, hey, we need some help here, or how can I help resource that? Like one of the most amazing things that we've seen, which has been a good problem, is that we've had more servant leaders than projects to actually plug them into. And so we had to up our game and say, man, that's a good problem when you're having, 200 people show up on a Saturday when it's raining or it is really hot in South Florida, where again, some of the churches that I was a part of in my earlier years in youth ministry, man, if we got 20 people, we were praising God. You know what I mean? But us, what we've done is we've been able to just mobilize and really reach the heartbeat of where people are at, and people are just coming and they're inviting people. I've known people who have come to an I Love My City before they ever came to a VOUS Church, and then got plugged into VOUS Church through I Love My City.
I love that. Yeah. Just like what Benny's saying, we see so many servant leaders. I think our biggest I Love My City was Serve Day last July. 552 people showed up to serve their city. And for us, I think as a team internally, we're like, okay, we need to step our game up, because we want to make sure that when we do offer projects, it's important for us to have something that is high touch, something that's engaging. The reason why people do come back month to month is because they had an experience. They're like, wow, I was able to be a part of something, and I was able to do something. So for us, when we're searching and researching for projects, we really do take the time to know how many people do you need for a certain project? What will people be doing from the time that is allotted? Because we don't want people to just show up and just stand around. We want to make sure that we're giving direction, that people are really feeling like they're actually participating in something, because that's the reason why they'll come back the next month. It happens month to month. It's not every week, so it's important for us to retain the people who are coming from each month. And so the biggest thing for us is, how can I get a high-touch, high-engaging project that is not only a benefit, our biggest goal is to be a benefit to the organizations that we're serving, but also to the people who are coming in. We want to make sure that they're benefiting and being able to get an experience of what outreach is and how to serve their city. Because some people are coming for the very first time. And like Benny said, there's so many stories of people who come to I Love My City before they come to church. And because they have an opportunity to serve their city, it was like, I want to be a part of this church that's doing that. And so it's just, it happened organically, but it was so important for us to reel it in and realize, okay, we need to get into the details to make sure that we are serving our church and serving our community the right way.
Yeah, I had this thought, just thinking about how, normally people on the outside would be like, well, what does your church do outside of just Sunday? And I think we've answered that question. And I think the thing for us is we've just been consistent with what we're doing. Come rain or come shine, whether we're doing a beautification project, whether we're working with special needs, whatever it is, we've just been consistent with it. You know what I mean? So I just think that lends itself to what people want to see. I think when people see that and they're like, wow, you guys are actually doing this, and you're using your resources, which our greatest resource really is us. Our availability is the greatest resource that we can add to it. Right? Because if we're present, we're sharing it. If we're present, we're posting it. So by doing that, I think what we have seen is just people engage and want. I mean, I have people ask me, "Hey, when is the next I Love My City?" And I'm like, "I didn't even know you went to VOUS." And they're like, "I haven't. Somebody else posted it, but I'd love to go to that." And that's the kind of conversations, organic conversations that we're having around it.
I love that. So maybe talk a little bit about what does it take to make an I Love My City happen?
Yeah, kind of like. We thought of this in the beginning, was that it was really kind of broken down in 3 areas, which was projects, people, and partnerships. And so really our people was, one, we needed to get the word out there to people. So we're again, like I said, we're constantly talking about it. We're inviting people, rather through our crews, rather through our team rallies, rather through on Sunday. We're mobilizing people. Then again, to get the projects up and going, we have a systematic process. So we have a team that's actually behind the scenes working to solidify these projects, get the details, mobilize who are the leaders. We just don't say go out there and just go hand out homeless food to the homeless. We actually created maps. We actually circled high priority areas. We said go here around this time, and when it didn't work, we figured out, okay, where did they move to? Because we understand by a certain time that the homeless community will move from one place to another because they can't be at a place for so long. Simple things like that. So constant conversations that we're having, SWOT reporting. We SWOT everything, and base camp, all of these systems to help us operate because people want structure. You just can't, you can say, let's just do it, but the reality is, how do you measure the outcomes? And so for us, what we've been able to do is to measure the outcomes, to look at the numbers, and our numbers have been growing. Even though you said our biggest one was Serve Day, actually, I think our biggest one might have been Thanksgiving. We had 725 servant leaders show up.
That's very true.
What? That's ridiculous.
That day was insane.
Yeah. You know what I mean? So that's a good problem, and that motivates people. Here's what it does. It gets the community saying, what are you guys doing? It'll get people who don't even go to church to say, how can I give to that? Because they believe in something greater than themselves. And I think that's what we've done. We've done it consistently. So people will donate, people will give their resources. And so on the people side, we do a lot of that. We have capacity of I think what is it called? Capacity seating or filling, where
Optimal team size.
there you go. That's something like that, right? But what we do is we fill in a team, and then you move on to the next project, and it's closed. So it helps us to understand, one, that we have the right people there, and then also, here's the thing: if you've served in it before and you're talking about it, you're going to be the first one when that email comes out to sign up for that project again because you're connected to it. So that happens as well. But also, to make this happen, when we look at on the project side, there's 4 areas that we've broken this into, and one of them is child base, where we're serving organizations that are already in our community. And here's the thing. When you have something like a CDC, which is a Community Development Corporation, you can have more things where you're bringing in-house. Right now, we're not at that place where we can do that as a young church, but here's what we're doing. We're partnering with agencies that are already doing that. So here's what we're doing. We're not competing, we're completing. We're helping people do the mission that God has called them to do already, and we're partnering with them, getting behind them, resourcing them, saying, listen, we'll bring 30 people to your place. What do you want us to do? Do you want us to paint? Do you want us to beautify your place? Do you want us to serve people? Whatever that capacity looks like, we're able to go ahead and fulfill that. So we also have one special needs where we work with the VOUS Center, and they come in, man, when they come in, they just light up the room. When we're part of them, that energy that is there. We've partnered with many organizations throughout South Florida, also community-based organizations that are doing community work and then also beautification projects. And that's where we'll go in. And we had one at Miami Rescue Mission where somebody said, listen, hey, I can bring the sand, I can bring the paint, I can bring I can help furnish it, I can help beautify it. And that's what happens, that people, when they get excited about a project, guess what? You don't have to ask them. They're just going to volunteer. They're just going to come, and they're going to tap other people on the shoulder and say, listen, I want you to come with me. And so that has helped make it happen for us on the people side. And then on the partnership side, it's really just partnering with people. Again, this is an area where our partnerships where we could get better at, and we know that because we believe that people can give financially, but also we've had resources come from Goya, we've had resources come from Publix, we've had resources come from other financial donors or business people. Why? Because we've been tugging at the heartstrings of where they're at and their ability to give. And here's the thing, because we preach generosity, man, it's just like part of our language. It's not like we have to have a big deal to. No, it's part of our language. It's part of our conversation. And so us continually having these conversations and us doing these projects and mobilizing people and building these partnerships is what make I Love My City happen on a project-to-project basis.
I love it. There's so many details that goes into projects. And maybe just talk a little bit about some of the tools that we use. I'll chat a little bit about Basecamp. So Basecamp is a project management tool that we use as a church, and it's just really helped us organize around all of the projects that we have. So we know that month to month, our projects look the same in terms of the template that we have. When it comes to the 4 events that Benny has talked about, those templates look a little bit different. And it's helped us to organize around, okay, I know this is a monthly project. I know this is an event. And we've really mapped out everything that we need to make one of these events happen, or everything that we need to make a project happen. And we can connect our team leads there, and we make sure that our team leads are stepping into a Saturday knowing all the information that they need to know. So they get a 1-pager with all the details, the contact information, what supplies they have. And so we've utilized different tools to help organize. We utilize base camp, but then we make sure that we're swatting. Can you talk a little bit about SWATs and the reports that we send in?
Yeah. So especially with swatting, I think it's always important. Like after each I Love My City, by the end of the day, we'll send in a SWAT report. Strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And what we find is we're able to take that information and get perspective from different people who were serving on different projects. So it's easy to say, yeah, we crushed it, we killed it because we had 300 people. But what if there was an area of improvement? How do we grow from this project? How do we get better at doing what we do best? And so we SWAT it, we report it, we track it. Manu and the team sits down and we go through this stuff. Like she literally goes through it. She combs through it and finds what areas can we improve on. And I think that's so important because I think for us, how many of you guys have ever done a project and you said that was great and you had an idea or perspective, but you never shared it? Well, people aren't mind readers, you know what I mean? Like, you need to share that stuff. You need to put that stuff out there because it's only going to help you. And then maybe that's an opportunity for you to take ownership and say, maybe I have a solution for that. Or maybe I can tap somebody else as a resource to help make that project even better. And so I think that's a great way to do that as well. And again, overall, I think our biggest tool that we have is over-communication. Yeah. You cannot under-communicate big projects. You can't over-communicate. And over-communicate, like like your base camp is going off like ding, 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 plus your text messages, plus your WhatsApp. But I'm gonna tell you something, it puts everybody at ease because I think if you're gonna lead projects, people want structure. They may not, you know what I mean? They may not like the constraints of it, but they want structure. They want to know, I'm going into this project, here's what I can expect, here's what I'm doing, and I'm going to tell you something. When people feel like you've given them a task and here's the outcome and they've met it, they feel like they got actually something worth out of that project. They feel like they've got value out of it. And not only that, but they're going to feel like, man, I could step up even more. But when it's kind of like open-ended, you just kind of do whatever, just grab whatever, it doesn't lend itself to really the organizational side of providing the level of excellence that you could provide. And that's what we preach, that excellence is our spirit. And so that's one of our values, and we just live that out through our projects.
That's so true. Excellence is our spirit, and we know that there's always areas that we can improve in. And so just thinking about when we SWAT, it's not just the team leads that are SWAT, but we ask every single project lead to submit a SWAT because we don't have visibility everywhere. We can't see everything. And it's been so helpful for us to get the input of more people. And so for us, we just want to involve more people. The more people we can involve in projects, the more that can get done, the more ideas that can come from it. So when you're thinking about outreach and you're thinking about projects, you're not trying to do it all on your own. We want to make sure that we're doing this with our teams and we're hearing what other people are saying and receiving the feedback that people are giving. And it's been so helpful because there are times where I'm like, man, that day was amazing. And then I'll read SWATs and I'm like, oh, that happened? Yep. That was not good, but it just helps us for the next time. So just being able to have visibility everywhere and really, and the way that our team leads look at things and project leads look at things, we're just like, hey, you're always looking for what can be improved. So they're already stepping into a project knowing I'm swatting in real time. I'm not waiting, solving problems in real time as well, but then also if there's anything that I need to write down, it's so easy for us to forget. And so it's just like writing things down in the moment. When I get an idea, I'm gonna write it down so that when it's time to submit a SWAT, that I already have all this information and I'm not trying to rack my brain and remember what's going on. And so we've just seen so many great things happen through I Love My City, and for us, we believe that it's going to continue to grow. We believe that God's going to continue to allow us to do amazing things. I think the most special thing for me throughout I Love My City and through the years that we've been doing it is the partnerships that we've been able to connect with and the different organizations that we have partnered with because they've become family to us. So what happens at the end of the year, we do this end of year giving, and we go to these different places and we just surprise them because like you've been a partner for this long, like we want to bless you. And like VOUS Conference, we're calling all of our partners, like how many tickets do you need to VOUS Conference? We want you there. And so for us, it's not just the once a month, hey, we'll see you later, but it's like, hey, how can we serve you? How can we help you? How can we be a part of this? And really connecting and becoming family. I see Scott back there, who's a part of Overtown Youth Center, one of the, not Overtown Youth Center, I just messed that up. Urban Promise, my gosh, forgive me. Erase that from the tapes. But like one of our partners that we've connected with, and they're here today, and we get to be there each and every month. And it's becoming a family, the organizations that we get to partner with. But not only do we get to do monthly outreaches, we also focused on helping people week to week and helping the people who are inside the doors of our church. We want to make sure that people are healthy emotionally, spiritually, relationally. It's important to walk people through every journey of their lives. And so that's why we started maybe about 2 years ago, VOUS Care. And VOUS Care really started with one class. And can maybe talk a little bit about what our Tuesday night VOUS Care classes are, and just maybe give a little bit of details on each one of the classes.
Yeah, so even just to give another overview, like VOUS Care is the area in our church that helps people navigate the challenging times in their lives, like just like Manouchka said, right? The emotional, financial, relational, and personal. So we have 4 classes at VOUS Care that we have on Tuesday nights. We meet weekly during each season, and a season at our church is the way we operate. Whether it's cruise, whether it's training, whether it's our classes, it is like January, February, March. So 3 months on and then 1 month off. So at VOUS Care on our Tuesday night classes, we meet every single week. And so we have 4 classes, right? So one class is called Free to Grow. That is the class that helps with emotional development. It helps people overcome setbacks and disappointments that have hindered their personal and their emotional or spiritual growth. We have another class called Financial Peace University. I don't know if anyone has heard of it. Maybe you do it at your church. Dave Ramsey, he is like this financial guru, and it helps people get out of debt. It helps people really learn how to manage their money, because we find that when people are free and not chained to debt, they're able to do and be who God has called them to be. And we also have a class called Symbis, which is Saving Your Marriage Before It Starts. That's our premarital class, and it goes over different things like sex and intimacy, conflict resolution, communication, gender roles. And even in that class, although it is a premarital class, we find that almost half of the couples who come through are actually married. So maybe they didn't take a premarital class, or maybe they're going through a little bit of difficulty in their relationship, so they come to that class as well. And lastly, we have Celebrate Recovery, which Benny leads. Such a great group. It is it's a Christ-centered 12 steps group, and it goes over and really touches on addictions of all kinds, whether it's drug and alcohol, sex, food, self-harm. It helps people overcome their hurts, habits, and hangups. So even if it's not per se an addiction, but let's say something like even depression, or if someone has anger issues or eating challenges. So that class covers that as well. And again, we meet every single week, and we've really seen such a health come to our church based on the classes that we have at VOUS Care.
I love it. And how did VOUS Care classes start? Like, tell me a little bit about the beginning of that.
So about 3 years ago, Pastor DC came up, Don Cherie came up to my sister and I, and she was talking about something that's been on her heart. Because we noticed, okay, so our church is almost 4 years old. And months into church life, we realized that a lot of people have been coming up to us or other team leads, pastors, asking about counseling or emotional help, or that they're going through difficulties in their lives. So we realized that as a church, we need to not just care about the Sunday health or the Sunday ministry, but we need to create something that really walks with people throughout every area of their life. So that is why we started VOUS Care. That's how we started. Did you ask me how, or did you ask me why? How? Okay, I'll just do a little bit of both. Okay, so that was how, or that's the reason why we started. And actually, let me say something else. My sister and I are both therapists, and in our time of seeing clients, we realized that a lot of our clients actually go to churches just like VOUS. A lot of them go to, I don't know if anyone here is from South Florida. I'm sure a lot of you here are from South Florida, but if I name some of the churches that our clients came from, you would exactly know what they are. So we're realizing, okay, if our clients who've been through sexual assault, domestic violence, suicidal thoughts, depression, anxiety, if they're in large Bible-based churches, then they have to be in churches just like VOUS. So how can we help them? How can we look not just to the Sunday, but really to their whole needs? And I think that one thing that we have noticed is that just because someone is walking through VOUS Church, or even your churches, every single week with a smile on their face, just because they're serving week after week, maybe they're even a team leader on worship, whatever the case may be, that doesn't mean they are okay. That doesn't mean they're not struggling. It doesn't mean that they have things in their life that are really chaining them down or holding them down. So I think as we have started our VOUS Care classes, that's one thing that we have noticed. And even just talk a bit more about how we kind of rolled things out. Like Manouchka was saying, have classes on base camp. So ideas that we would come up with, my sister and I usually, ideas, pastors have ideas as well. We'll just jot everything on base camp, because one thing about our pastor, Pastor Rich, he moves fast. So if you don't know that, he moves fast. If he says something, I remember we were sitting in team leaders meeting, and he was like, yeah, we're about to start Celebrate Recovery. And we're like, oh, we are? We're about to start Celebrate Recovery? Like, we didn't know nothing about this. He didn't say nothing to us. So the minute he says something, we're like, okay, we're working. We're trying to get all the details done behind the scenes, because it might not be in the next month he'll say something, but almost guarantee, maybe it was like 6 months later, all right, are we ready to start? So it's a good thing that we had, planned and prepped all these different classes just in case. And our pastors, usually they're the ones who decide what rolls out when. So we usually start a new class maybe every 2 seasons, every, 2 to 3 seasons or so. Just we want to build in strength. We don't want to start, oh my gosh, let's do all these classes and then not have the capacity to sustain them. So we started with 1 class, and we did that for about, 2 seasons. Then we jumped in another class. We did that for a few more seasons and then rolled in a few more classes.
I love that. I think it's so important what Joe K's saying, because it's some of you out here, it's so important. We want to make sure that we're attaching to the vision and the leadership of our pastors and making sure that when they have an idea, I think it's important. It may not happen overnight, but for us, we've just learned really quickly, if there's an idea, we're going to write it down and we're going to just be prepared. I love this message, Scared but Prepared, that Pastor Rich preached about, because we hear something and we want to make sure that we're stewarding the vision that God has given them, and it may not happen, but I'm ready for it. When he's saying, hey, remember 6 months ago when I asked about that class? Oh yeah, no, we wrote everything up. It's already there on the base camp. Do you want to review it? We're ready to roll out. And so I think for us, we've learned to be flexible. We've learned to learn how to listen and just really just hear the heart of our pastors to know in what direction we should move. So for us, we might have ideas, and we'll always just put our ideas down there, but we always want to just make sure that we're in line with the vision of our pastors. And I think a lot of people in this room, you may be leading in different spaces, and you might be leading maybe in the outreach world or maybe in pastoral care, but just making sure, I think the most important thing for us is making sure that we're attached to the vision of our pastors and attached to the vision of our church. We're not trying to reinvent the wheel. We're not trying to do anything on our own. We want to make sure that we're connected to what's happening. And I think that's really what happened organically with VOUS Care, of just, we're not trying to do everything, but we're trying to do something. I want to reach somebody. I may not be able to reach everybody, but we're going to try. We're going to try, and we're going to do our best. And so just a question for you guys. What have you guys learned about meeting the needs of our community through pastoral care? I think, Benny, even you, being able to see week in and week out, Tuesday nights, Celebrate Recovery people coming in, seeing what's happening. I love my city. Maybe just talk about what you have learned along the journey.
I've learned probably to know your community. There's probably nothing more frustrating than trying to do a project that doesn't really meet the needs of your community. Wow, like, you're just wasting time. So for us, I think what we've been able to do is to understand who is our demographic, what area did God put us in. Like, again, we're not trying to parachute into a community. We're invested in a community. And so one, I think knowing your community, really understanding the conversations that are actually happening around you is really key, because as you build community, when I read scripture, I see something that happens within the proximity of where Jesus is, right? So what does that mean? He knows what's going on. How many times do you hear he's walking and he did something? What does that say? That his feet are on the ground. And so for us, I think what we've learned is, how do we target our community? There's a lot of things we could do great, but there are things that we want to do excellent. Yeah. And so for us, how we measure that is the level of impact. We say that people count, right? So we count numbers because people count. And so oftentimes what that means is that we do want a high level of retention. We do want a high level of how many people were we able to reach. We do want to be able to do that because that says something. That says something to how, for Thanksgiving, we gave out 1,200 bags of food, but those were for families of 5. If you do the numbers, that's 6,000 people that got a chance to eat. Wow. You're telling me that doesn't matter? If it wasn't so, then why did the scripture remind us that Jesus fed 5,000? So I'm just seeing it more from the perspective of, like, knowing our community. You know what I mean? And then also, I think maybe your pastor's giving you insight, but are you writing this stuff down? Yep. Is he saying this stuff, but are you leaning in and saying, maybe I know some people who can do that, or maybe we need to start writing this. How do we contextualize this? Because way before, even though Celebrate Recovery happened like this, they were talking about it way before. And so we were prepared. So guess what? I made sure that I had to let go of some projects so that I could take on something that was on my heart because of the conversations that were happening. And maybe God's tugging at your heart right now. Maybe there's that thing that you know, not only that you're hearing here, but things that God has spoken to you about that you need to speak up about. Because maybe God's mobilized you. So I think what we've just learned is how to lean in, how to understand, how to work well with each other, and I think for us, that's helped us to really create that culture of serving. Because again, it's not just like, hey, we're just going to serve one and just clean the street and do that. We do that. That's part of it. But our consistency and our level of engagement with people is what makes a difference. And knowing your community is everything. Because that's going to align your partnerships. That's going to align your people. That's going to align your process. That's going to align the funds. Because when you start talking conversations where others are like, yeah, I know that person, you've just invited somebody else who wasn't a part of it. Now you've extended the invitation. And so I would just say continue to have conversations around that, around what your community looks like, because that's what's gonna help drive the needs. I believe that's what kind of happened organically, just where we're at. But also, again, we're hearing the conversations of people coming into our church and saying, I need this, I need that. Why? Because people have just gone beyond just attending church and now wanting to do life. And when you do life with somebody, you start finding out their secrets. You start finding out their personal issues. And guess what? That's when we were able to go ahead and develop some of these things because of the conversations, because people are serving with one another and they're connecting. I think this thing it's like a bicycle, like one pedal in front of the other. Like this makes this move, this makes that move. And that's how we've just seen this thing grow.
What about you, Joe K? What have you learned along the journey of leading VOUS Care and the different classes that we have been able to host?
I think one of the things I've learned is that there's so many people in our churches, right, who can be suffering in silence. Like I said earlier, people just walking through with a smile on their face as if everything's okay. And one thing that we've seen as we open up the doors of VOUS Care is that people are coming in. Many of them are, leaders in church. Many of them not at all. Some people are just found out on Instagram that we had, classes, and they don't even go to VOUS, but they're coming through. Is that people really want freedom, right? We don't just want to raise our hands in church. We just don't want to sing a lovely song. And then what about Monday through Saturday, right? We want to be healthy. People want to be whole. And as our church grows, we want to make sure that we are rooted, like in strength and maturity and wholeness. We don't just want to have people who are talented in doing different things, but we want to have people who are well, people who are emotionally, spiritually, relationally, financially whole, because all of that matters to our church. I don't know if you would see things at church or on our Instagram, right? Like our Sundays, this and that, but you might not realize that as much as we care about that, we care about the individual and we care about their heart and how they're doing. So
I love it. How do you build a healthy church? You build a healthy church with healthy individuals. And when you have healthy individuals, you can have healthy teams. So for us, it really starts with making sure that we're healthy, that our teams are healthy so that we can be able to produce something that's healthy. So we're just going to open up for some questions. We're going to take the next 10 minutes. If anybody has any questions, we're going to open up for questions. And then I think, yeah, you can do that. But I feel like I can hear. There we go.
Hi,
Thank
guys.
you. Hey.
My name is Amy, and I have a question for you regarding I was obedient, and I felt God wanted me to open a small business and do good through it. So I have a little coffee shop in Coral Springs, Florida, and one of the obstacles I'm running into is with my coffee superheroes, we like to do things for the community, such as for Valentine's Day, we have a little station. People make Valentines. We went to local nursing homes, invited our guests that come in to come with us. For Thanksgiving, we're open. We have a free feast for anyone that doesn't have somewhere to go, things like that throughout the year. But one of the oppositions I'm feeling is we want to, like you guys said, partner with other people, and the more the merrier. But when we're partnering with other companies or individuals, it's kind of, we're struggling with egos, and I'm not sure how to handle it. Like when we make a flyer, it's like, why is my logo beneath this one? Or why isn't my logo bigger? What about, did you give me the shout out on social media? And so it's something that I've been struggling with and we've been struggling with as a company, because we are a Christian company and we want to do good. And I just don't know where to really go with that. We want to continue to do good. We want to open it up for more people to participate, but that's one of the struggles we're dealing with. So hopefully you guys can give me some guidance on that. Thank you.
Okay. I've done a lot of work in the community. I've worked with the homeless. I've worked with students. I've worked substance abuse. I've worked for national organizations like Samaritan's Purse, leading as a regional South Florida. I think really knowing who you want to partner with takes time, and so I would almost encourage you to say, don't rush, don't jump at it. But I would say that I think finding the right partner that has the heartbeat that you have and carries the same values you have is a way to align that. Because if you're already seeing that conflict now, it's probably not going to get easier as you move along. Right. So I would invest and say, well, investigate, like, or do some research, like who in the community is doing what. I would say do a roundtable and invite them over. Hey, I want to do a roundtable, and I just want to create conversations around this on a monthly basis. We're going to serve coffee. You know what I mean? And what we want to do is we want to create dialogue and conversation. Because if you start doing that in community, what happens is that people start to see their egos and they start to check it themselves. And so I would just encourage you to maybe do something simple like that. Engage some conversation. Again, I understand the whole shout-out thing. If that's part of it, then maybe that needs to be more of a donor sponsorship thing if they want to do that. If not, then that's not really up for discussion. I mean, there are some open-handed issues and closed-handed issues that you need to decide based on the value that you're adding to it, because I think that's going to set the tone moving forward.
Hi. We're visiting from a church in Milwaukee, and we're about 3 years old. And we love being able to do projects. One of the challenges that we have is that we have a lot of young families in our church who want to participate, but we're not really sure how to plan projects that their kids can be a part of, or they can bring their kids. And I say young families, I mean, like, our preschool ministry is exploding. It's outgrowing its space faster than, and all the rest of the ministries. And so I don't know if there's any projects that you guys are doing that you found work for young families to participate, or how you handle childcare, things like that, in order to make those things happen.
For sure. And yeah, lots of families will come and want to serve. And so for us, one of the projects that kids are always on, we do this project called Cards for Kids. And so we write cards for hospitalized children. And so that's usually the project that all of our parents go to, because they can sit with their kids. It's arts and crafts. They get to write messages to other children. So that has been like one of the biggest projects that we usually do to push kids towards. Sometimes when we're doing, well, I guess it all depends on the age range, but sometimes they'll do little gardening projects that we'll have them on. But really the biggest thing for us we'll see with young children is the Cards for Kids project is the easiest and safest project for children. So we do it at our location. So what we'll do is we'll buy a bunch of supplies, we'll have it at our location, and then we'll give it to local hospitals. So we've partnered with like the Nicholas Children's Center and different local hospitals in Miami, and we'll hand deliver it them. But we'll do all the projects on site so that the parents can stay with their kids. We got one back here.
Hello. I had a question about base camp. So when you guys use base camp, is that mostly for your staff and leadership team, or do you bring volunteers into base camp?
Our volunteers are all, well, our servant leaders is what we call them. They're all on base camp. So if you're on a team and you're serving, not every single servant leader, but if you're a service leader, if you are a team leader, if you're going to be involved in any kind of project where we need to communicate with you, we'll add everybody on base camp. And so the way that base camp works is that they're different projects. And so pretty much probably a lot of our servant leaders are on base camp, but we'll just add them to certain projects that pertains to them. So everybody won't be in every single base camp that we have, but if we're doing an I Love My City Thanksgiving project that we need somebody on our environments team to be on, we'll just add them to the base camp. So we usually freely add anybody to a base camp if it pertains to them. So staff, volunteers, all are on base camp.
So when you're doing that outreach and you have everything on base camp and you have like an extra 100 people that show up, how do you handle that?
So for us, well, we just use projections. So we've kind of learned from, okay, we need to be prepared. Yep. And so what we'll do is we'll have projections. And so we'll look at the numbers. So we have an event tracking sheet. And so we'll track all of our event numbers. and we'll compare the numbers. We'll compare our RSVP numbers to our last month numbers. And so before we step into a project and begin planning for a month, we look at what we're projected to have. So our goal as a team is to always have the amount of projects that will supply the projected number. And so usually if we have more people than our projection. Feeding the homeless there's certain projects that we have that we know that we can add people to. There's certain projects that do have a hard cap depending on the organizations. But there's certain projects where we're like, hey, like you can go to feeding the homeless, or you can go to beautification. You can help paint here. So there's certain projects that are a little bit more open that allows us flexibility. But the projects that do have a hard cap, we keep those caps on that project.
And so you email them out every time, and if they don't respond, you guys just follow up with them, that type of thing?
So we'll send 3 emails out before I Love My City will happen, but we're talking about it. It's on our website. And so our volunteers, our servant leaders can go on VOUSchurch.com/I Love My City, and they can sign up for the next project. So we try to get ahead of all the projects where right after we end I Love My City, we're updating the website with the next month's project so that people can already begin signing up. And then 2 weeks out, we send a first initial email. We talk about it in our huddles. We talk about it in our rallies. We usually incorporate it in one of our offering messages. And then we'll send out 2 other emails to remind people. And then we'll do swipe ups on social media. And then we're just making sure that we're talking about it. Like if we have crews, there's a link that people can go to during their small groups to sign up for a project. So there's a few different places that we're communicating it out.
And like all the details that you're talking about, you have a base camp part for all of these details.
Yes, I Love My City has its own base camp. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Thank you.
Of course. I think there's one hand back there.
I saw. Yeah, I'll go around. Sorry.
Hi, I just had a quick question. Did you ever have a project that didn't pan out, or there was like a last minute change? And how did you handle that? Like, how did you communicate that to everyone involved and all the parties and everyone that was working on that with you?
Yes, I think there have been a few moments where things have not panned out the way that we wanted to. It hurts. It feels so bad. But we've definitely had some moments where we're just like, okay, this did not work out. Or we'll get a call on a Friday and a project would say, hey, we can't have you. We can't take you guys anymore. And so what we have done, because we've learned from that, we've just built in systems of communication with our organizations where before a project, we want to make sure that we're reaching out to them, confirming twice the week of. So we confirm with them a month out, but then leading up to the project, we do different levels of checks, just making sure that we're good to go. And so by Friday, we should have everything set. It's our last day of communicating with the organization, saying, hey, we're getting ready to come. Who is the point of contact? This is the time that we're meeting. And there will be moments where they're saying, hey, like, oh, man, this won't work out, we can't meet. And so what we'll do is anybody who signed up for that project, we'll have the project leader reach out to those people, say, hey, I'm so sorry, this project is not happening. We're gonna ask you to join this project. So we'll have them be a part of another project if it doesn't work. So we've had moments where people do cancel on us last minute and we just have to pivot. And so our projects that we know are open, we reach out, we text, and we redirect people to another project.
Thank you.
Yes.
I think just don't bank on one project. Like if it's like an outside project and it's raining, you're pretty much like, you know what I mean? Like I think creating range and margin actually helps you out. So think of 2 or 3 really great projects that you can do. Not like, hey, this is a fallback project, but like these are all like hype them up, like really, really add value to them just in case those things happen. I think the fortunate thing is because we've had multiple projects, we've been able to kind of shift and pivot in the moment and troubleshoot. But also because there's so many servant leaders that are leading, it also, everybody's just communicating on the same page. So again, if something doesn't work, it's either a people problem or a process problem. So you need to figure out which one.
I like that, Benny. It's either a people problem or a process problem. I think the biggest thing that we've learned is, and our mistakes have helped us realize what systems and processes that we needed to add, where I'm like, oh no, we can't. We're like, make a million mistakes, don't make the same mistake twice. So we've learned, like, all right, we've made this mistake once, what system do we need to add? Or is there a person that needs to be attached to this certain thing so that this ball won't get dropped? So our mistakes have taught us a whole lot, and they don't feel good, but it's good for us. It has truly helped us. I think someone has, the mic is somewhere, I don't know.
Yes, I have it. Hi,
I just hear a voice, I don't even see
I'm
it.
back here.
There we go, hey.
Hi, I'm from a church in the UK, and I've
let's
got a couple
go.
of questions about VOUS Care. We run a recovery kind of class, and I don't know if it's a cultural difference at all, but how do you support people with shame and the embarrassment of coming to the class? We have a lot of people that want the support and highlight it individually, but then wanting to come to a group, they don't turn up often. And the second question that links is, when you have the one-to-ones who want the help with addictions and things like that, what kind of boundaries do you put in place so that it's not really intense support, but also helping them out as a church?
Perfect. Yes, I'll address the first question, then I'll throw it over to Benny to address the second one. But regarding shame and the stigma that's kind of surrounds needing help, I think one thing that our church has done a better job, that we've actually improved on that, is just talking about it, right? So if it's always in conversation, if we're always talking about it, then it's not going to seem like this hidden thing that, oh, if I come to this class, that means I'm, X, Y, and Z, or, oh, I'm desperate for help, or, it's some kind of, I guess, negative thing. But we talk about it, whether it's in the courtyard, like outside of church, our pastors talk about it from the platform. It's on our social media, so we put it out there and really have that conversation about, this is okay. Like, this is all about health, right? And Benny likes to say that everyone is in recovery, right? So it's a matter of if you want to get the help, or if you just, are you going to sit there in your, I guess, pain or in your little struggle? So I think that's one of the ways that we do it best, is just really talking about it. And those who have come through the classes, they even talk about it to their friends or people they know. And I think our church has the connotation with VOUS Care that it's such a great program, like, oh, it's so good, that people are really finding freedom, people are finding help. And we also talk about VOUS Care in terms of health, not just if I have an issue, but do I want to be healthy, or do I want to, even if I think I'm okay, do I want to just make sure I'm okay? Do you want to be extra healthy? So we have that, together. So it's not just I have a problem, but I'm trying to grow in health.
I think to address your second question, so when we started Celebrate Recovery, we realized a lot of people walked in there dealing with the hurt, hang-up, and addiction. And it was very interesting to see people say, well, I didn't know the church would talk about this addiction. I didn't know that you would talk about sex addiction. And here's the thing, we put stories out there. Like, when they put mine and my wife's story out there of me being in recovery, a lot of people were like, oh, I didn't know. But what it did was it opened the door for conversation. Yeah. Because this has been the stigma that oftentimes the church has, right? Like, oh, I can't, if I'm bad, I can't go, bear my scars like that. But how many people are out there struggling? People that we know, who we're doing life with, who we're serving alongside. And so one thing, anonymity is really important. We call it a class, but really it's an opportunity for fellowship. It's an opportunity for people to get plugged into local. So we are pushing people to outside meetings. We are helping them to get connected and find sponsors and have this real talk around conversations, because people are battling with addictions. Whether you want to admit it or not is up to you. The reality is we can't force anybody into recovery. Right? They have to want it. It's all about willingness. And so for us, we journey along people. I'm constantly on my phone. I'm constantly saying, here, go to this meeting. Hey, let's go to an IOP, which is an intensive outpatient. What about residential care? I'm calling my resources. This is why I love my VOUS Care works for me, because I'm resourceful. But I mean, how many people have we called? You guys have said, Benny, this person is homeless. How do we get into a shelter? And before you know it, they're in there. Part of it is all about resources and networking and helping people so that they can find freedom, because the reality is that somebody has to want it, but they have to know that they can come to a church that's willing to love on them, that's willing to journey with them, that's not going to judge them, that's going to be able to, their business is not gossip. Like, that's the worst thing we could do with those in recovery, is to be like, guess who's doing what? Yeah. We don't do that. Like, those are values that we hold to, because listen, this is tough. And so when people are going through their recovery process and they're going through their journey, they need to find solid people. They need to find people who also have long-term sobriety and recovery so that they can find freedom and hope in Christ. Because guess what? They are walking in with shame. They are walking in with disappointment. They are walking in with a lot of guilt. And then when they come into that place, we want to make it easy for them to engage and get involved with. And so for me, I'm passionate about it, not only for my own story and my own journey, but because I understand what people are going through. Regardless, it doesn't matter who you are, okay? Again, there are people who will come in, who serve on team. Guess what? This is home for you. Doesn't matter what you do, it's who you are that we care about.
Thank you.
Hands a little bit faster. Here you go. Saw you.
That's okay, thank you. Hi, my name's Natalie. I go to a church in Kissimmee, but we have 3 campuses, so I'm part of one of the new plants. So we're not as big in attendance as our main campus, but I believe that in regards to classes, leaders, and what we offer for the people, my question to you guys is, do you base your classes on the leaders that you already have to teach them, or do you bring in outside people to teach those classes, and how do you manage that, having a small attendance and then eventually growing into more?
Yeah, I'll answer that. For us, all of our teachers are servant leaders. So everyone who serves on I Love My City, they're not on staff, they're not outside guests or anything. It's really all internal, and that's why we've taken so long to build, because we were trying to find the right people. So we started our class off with Free to Grow, and the 3 of us would be in that room, like being a part of it and teaching it. And so we would find the right people. We always knew the classes that we wanted to have, but we wanted to attach the right people to it, and God would just bring us the right people. So for Celebrate Recovery and for our Symbis class and for our Financial Peace class, all those classes, it really just helped with us just having conversations and saying, hey, this is on our heart. We want to do this. And we started to connect with people who we already knew, but we didn't know that they had certain expertise or knowledge in a certain area, but just having conversations and us just knowing what we had a vision for. So it was like, we know we want to go here. We may not have the name attached to it or the person attached to it, but we just always had a vision of the classes that we wanted to host. And we started to just meet people and talk to people, and we built team just that way, of just internal servant leaders, people who we knew had a heart for teaching and then had a heart for certain classes. And so it's happened that way. Yeah.
Hey, so I'm not a pastor. I'm not any kind of big leader in our church. I'm just a barista, and I just
We need you.
I work on yeah. So I help on our leadership team for our young adult ministry. It's kind of a budding thing that we're trying to develop and grow, and so we're actually, this is perfect timing because we're in the middle of a series of meetings about our vision and how we're going to progress forward right now. And so we're looking at different goals and stuff. And one of those goals is to serve our church. Yeah. And so our church has this thing. It's kind of similar to your I Love My City. It's called Love in Action. And it's also a budding ministry that's very small. And we only have things like once in a great while that we do service projects and stuff. And so the emphasis of that is to kind of lift up the parts of the city that are impoverished or are hurting or whatever. And so the question is, in regard to the leadership team that I'm a part of and the young adult ministry, if we want to serve our church and we want to serve that vision and we want to help to move forward with serving our city as a part of that, I guess, what suggestions do you have for me and for our team in how to implement more projects that maybe we take initiative on, or maybe like we look for opportunities? How do we go about that?
Yeah, I think a great way to go about that is just researching the organizations that are already in your community. And for us, that's just been huge. We always say this, we're not trying to reinvent the wheel. There's some organizations that are doing things in a great way, and they need assistance. So for us, we're always looking for organizations that are local, and we're reaching out to them and saying, hey, how can we serve you? We send them a partnership form, and the partnership form lays out all the dates that we have for I Love My City and the ways that we can serve and different needs that they have. And so we kind of list out how we can help them, and we'll send it out to local organizations. But it's just been really helpful to see who's already on the ground and who's already doing what for the community, and just seeing how you can link arms. I think Benny said it great. He said it's not competition, it's completing. And so we're just figuring out how can we help these organizations, because we find they do need a lot of help, and they appreciate the help. Just being able to know that they can have a set of 30 people that'll come to their organization and paint and build like things that they want to get done but don't have the time or the resources to do. That's where you can come in and just a phone call like, hey, how can we serve you? For us, that's what we do with all of our organizations. We're just saying, hey, we just want to serve you. How can we help and serve you? So I think that's the first place to start. See who's helping in your community, what organizations are already working and operating, and seeing how you can link arms with them and see different opportunities for volunteering.
Thank you.
Of course, thank you. I think we're going to take a
question.
Yeah, I'll take two more. Two more.
The Free to Grow curriculum, is that available for purchase?
Yes, that was an easy question.
Okay.
It is available on livingfree.org.
And then also, where do you guys meet? You are a mobile church. Where do you meet for your Celebrate Recovery and
Yes.
different programs that you have?
So 3 of our classes, we have what we call VOUS Casa and VOUS HQ. It's our headquarters, and it's where we meet and we work from. So we host our Celebrate Recovery from VOUS HQ. We host our Symbis and our Free to Grow classes from VOUS Casa, which is right next door. And then Little Haiti Cultural Center is where we host our Financial Peace University. So we've needed more space, so we rented out a room, a classroom, to host it. So we're always looking for more room. The thing is, we want to do more classes and we want to do more things, but we just don't have the space as of yet. So we got to get creative. One more question.
Last question.
Yeah, you mentioned this earlier, but so I run Urban Promise in East Little Havana, and we work with lower-income families. And I think we've been partnered with you for about 2 years, which has been awesome. And just to follow up from what you answered the other question, there was actually an article on CNN that sadly Florida and Miami specifically was rated the least volunteerism area of the U.S. And so being there for 4 years, I've dealt with a lot of egos or a lot of people coming with an agenda, basically, of let me do this for you. And so it's been amazing, the enthusiasm that you guys show up with, and really just ask, how can we help you, sincerely? And that's been awesome. We've accomplished a lot in 2 years with many, many hundreds of volunteers. So just thank you guys.
Scott, we love you. Give it up for Scott, who is amazing. I love that one of our partners are in the room where we get to talk about I Love My City. How fun is that? That's the fun thing about partnering with people. Like, you know, you really, really do become family. And thank you for being a part of our church and a part of all that we do. But we just want to say a huge thank you for you all coming out to being a part of this, of whatever led you to be here. We hope that you learned something and gained something from this today. And we really just want to be a resource to you guys. I think for us as a church, we want to give out all that we have. Like I said, we don't have all the answers. We're not perfect. We're still trying to figure it out. But for us, our goal is to steward what God has given us and to help. And we are praying for you guys in your churches and wherever you are and what God has put in your heart. We're believing that God's going to push your vision forward. We're believing that God is going to continue to use you in your space. And really for us, I think my encouragement to you would be just take it one day at a time. It doesn't have to be big. You don't have to have 730 servant leaders show up for a Thanksgiving drive. It's really about, for us, the biggest win is not just the numbers. The numbers are great. I think God moves in numbers. But when we know that we can talk face to face with one of our organizations and they can say, hey, thank you so much for what you've done. Thank you so much for how you served me. I think it's just the little details. It's no small thing. Even if you could only get one project off the ground, even if only you could host one class, or you just start from where you are. It doesn't have to be this big thing, because God's going to bless where you are, and he's going to allow you to grow. God wants this city changed more than we do. And so as long as we're obedient to what God is asking us to do, even when it doesn't seem like it's flourishing how we want it to, we're just trusting God with it. And so that's all we can do. We can trust God with what he's put inside of our heart. We're going to work hard. We're going to figure out ways to do it better. We're going to figure out ways to involve more people and to link arms with the people around us. But we'll never take it lightly that we get an opportunity to serve our community and to help people around us. It is honestly my greatest joy and my greatest honor to be able to serve alongside you and to serve alongside our entire team, to know what we get to do and what we get to accomplish, and to know it's just the beginning and that God is doing so much more. So we want to thank you all. I think we're going to stick around here and hang out if you guys want to, if you have any more questions that we didn't get to answer, we'll be here to chat. But give yourselves a round of applause for being a part of this.